Circulation of the blood in various regions of the body, it is known as regional circulation. Regional circulation, it includes coronary circulation, cerebral circulation, cutaneous circulation, circulation in the skeletal muscle, as well as splanchnic circulation. Coronary circulation, it includes arterial supply and the venous drainage in the myocardium of the heart. Now, first of all, understand about the arterial supply to the myocardium. So, the arterial supply to the myocardium is through the coronary arteries originating from the aorta. Now, the coronary arteries, they are right coronary artery and the left coronary artery. Right coronary artery, it mainly supplies right atrium, right ventricle, posterior part of the left ventricle, and the posterior part of the interventricular septum. Now the major portion of the conducting system of the heart, including the SA node, it is supplied by the right coronary artery. Left coronary artery, it gives circumflex branch as well as the anterior descending interventricular branch. Left coronary artery, it supplies blood mainly to the left atrium, left ventricle, anterior part of the interventricular septum, and part of the left branch of the bundle of His. Now the blood supply to the heart is from both left coronary artery and the right coronary artery, and the variation exists. Now in 20% of the individual, myocardium is predominantly supplied by left coronary artery. In 50% individual, predominant supply is by the right coronary artery, and in the remaining 30% of the individual, it is the balanced supply from right as well as the left coronary artery. Coronary vessels or coronary arteries, they are end arteries. It means area of the myocardium, it is supplied by only single artery and no overlap is present in the arterial supply. So whenever any blockade or arterial plaque occurs, it results in the ischemia or the infarction to the myocardium which is supplied by that vessel. Alternate functional anastomosis, they are present, but they become functional only in the abnormal condition like ischemic heart disease, and they can partially restore blood supply to the myocardium. Now these anastomosis, they are of two types: cardiac anastomosis and the extra cardiac anastomosis. Cardiac anastomosis are those which are present between the branches of two coronary arteries and between the branches of the coronary artery and the deep venous system. Extracardiac anastomosis include those present between the branches of the coronary artery and the vessel lying near the heart, like aorta. Coronary blood flow and the oxygen demand. Coronary blood flow at rest is about 250 ml per minute, which is about 70 ml per 100 gram of the tissue per minute, which is about 5% of the resting cardiac output. Oxygen consumption by the myocardium is very high. It is about 25 ml per minute or 8 ml per minute per 100 gram of the tissue at rest. Now at rest, about 70 to 80% of the oxygen is extracted from each unit of the coronary blood as compared to the whole body oxygen extraction at the rest. So during exercise, nearly 100% extraction of the oxygen occurs and the coronary blood flow, it increases manifold, and by this manner enough amount of the oxygen it is supplied to the myocardium. Oxygen supply and the consumption by the myocardium versus rest of the body. So here we can see all the parameters like oxygen content in the arterial blood and the venous blood, arteriovenous oxygen difference, and the coefficient of the oxygen utilization in the myocardium as well as the rest of the body. First of all, let's understand oxygen supply and the consumption in the rest of the body. So in the rest of the body, oxygen content in the arterial blood, it is about 19 ml percentage, and oxygen content in the venous blood, it is about 14 ml percentage. So arteriovenous oxygen difference, it is about 5 ml percentage or 5 ml percentage oxygen it is utilized. So coefficient of the oxygen utilization is equal to oxygen utilized divided by oxygen supplied, that is 5 divided by 19 multiplied with 100 is equal to 26 percentage. It means from 19 ml percentage of the oxygen supplied, 26 percentage of the oxygen it is utilized by the rest of the body. Now let's understand oxygen supply as well as the utilization in the myocardium. In the myocardium, 19 ml percentage of the oxygen it is supplied in the arterial blood, and in the venous blood oxygen content is about 6 ml percentage. Now arteriovenous oxygen difference or the oxygen utilized is about 13 ml percentage. Now coefficient of the oxygen utilization is equal to oxygen utilized, that is 13 ml percentage, divided by oxygen supplied, that is 19 ml percentage, multiplied with 100 is equal to 70 percentage. So from 19 ml percentage oxygen that is supplied to the myocardium, 70 percentage of the oxygen it is utilized. So oxygen consumption of the myocardium it is high than the rest of the body. Blood flow to the myocardium, it is phasic blood flow, or it changes with the different phases of the cardiac cycle. Coronary blood flow, it depends on the pressure head in the coronary arteries, which is determined by the aortic pressure, and the resistance offered by the extravascular pressure which is exerted by the myocardium on the coronary vessel. Here we can see the recording of pressure inside the left ventricle during the different phases of the cardiac cycle, and the recording of blood flow inside the left coronary artery during all the phases of the cardiac cycle. So as we can see, during the ventricular systole, coronary blood flow decreases, and during the isovolumetric contraction, coronary blood flow decreases up to zero. Because during the isovolumetric contraction phase, pressure inside the ventricle increases, which produces compression over the coronary vessel, so blood flow in the coronary vessel decreases. During the ventricular diastole, pressure inside the ventricular musculature decreases, and along with that, coronary blood flow increases. Now, majority of the coronary blood flow, more than 70%, it occurs during the ventricular diastole. Clinical importance of the phasic coronary blood supply. So, coronary blood supply is phasic. Coronary blood flow decreases during the systole and increases during the diastole, and because of the phasic coronary blood flow, subendocardial region of the left ventricle is the most common site of the myocardial infarction. Because subendocardial region of the left ventricle, it received no blood supply during the systole, so this region is particularly vulnerable to the ischemia and is the most common site of the myocardial infarction. Now usually under normal physiological condition, ischemia or infarction it is prevented in the subendocardial region because of the presence of the compensatory or the protective mechanisms. Like capillary density, it is more in the subendocardial region. Minimum diffusion distance in the subendocardial region, it is shorter than the other region in the myocardium, and the myoglobin content is high. All these compensatory mechanism they prevent myocardial ischemia during the systole. Now in aortic stenosis, pressure inside the left ventricle is much high than the pressure in the aorta, because the ventricle has to force blood against a narrow aortic orifice, so pressure in the left ventricle is high. Now this increase in the pressure in the left ventricle, it produces severe compression of the coronary vessel during the systole. So the chances of the myocardial infarction they are more in the patient with a aortic stenosis. In the patient with a congestive cardiac failure, venous pressure increases. An increase in the venous pressure decreases the aortic diastolic pressure. As a result, the effective coronary perfusion pressure decreases in the patient with a congestive cardiac failure. Regulation of coronary blood flow. Coronary blood flow it is regulated by the local control mechanism as well as the neural mechanism. Now in the local control mechanism, the first mechanism is the autoregulation. Autoregulation is the well-developed mechanism in the coronary circulation, and autoregulation of the coronary blood flow fails when blood pressure falls below 70 mmHg. Role of local metabolites or the chemical mechanism for the regulation of the coronary blood flow. Now, adenosine, it is considered the major factor in the production of the coronary vasodilatation during the hypoxic states. And the role of the adenosine, it is also known as Burns hypothesis. Direct effect of the oxygen, it is also present as a local control mechanism. It has been proposed that decrease in the tissue partial pressure of the oxygen, it could also act directly on the arterioles and it can cause vasodilatation. Hydrogen ions, bradykinin, carbon dioxide and prostaglandins. These are the other suggested vasodilator substances that act as a local metabolite for the regulation of the coronary blood flow. Burns hypothesis. ATP and ADP, they are potent vasodilator substances. But ATP and ADP, they cannot cross cell membrane. But nucleotide adenosine, it can easily cross cell membrane. So whenever adenosine it is formed, it can cross cell membrane and it can produce coronary vasodilatation by acting on the resistance vessel. Now normally the extracellular adenosine it gets deaminated to form inosine and hypoxanthine or it re-enters in the myocardial cell to form ATP again. But whenever myocardial hypoxia occurs, it causes formation of the adenosine and before it is deaminated to form inosine, it escapes from myocardial cell to increase the coronary blood flow and this is known as Burns hypothesis. So here we can see the Burns hypothesis in the chart form. So whenever hypoxia occurs or the myocardial metabolism increases, it produces hypoxia of the myocardial cell or the ischemia of the myocardium. Now the hypoxia or the ischemia of the myocardial cell, it increases the conversion of the intracellular adenine nucleotide into the adenosine. Now adenosine is a potent vasodilator, so it escapes from the myocardial cell into the circulation and it acts as a coronary vasodilator substances and it increases the coronary blood flow. And this hypothesis is known as Burns hypothesis, which explains the role of the adenosine as a coronary vasodilator substance. Endothelium cells, they also releases vasodilator as well as the vasoconstrictor otacoids. They play role in the local control mechanism for the coronary blood flow. Now the vasodilator otacoids, they include endothelium derived relaxation factor EDRF or nitric oxide and the prostacyclin. They produce vasodilatation and increases coronary blood flow. Vasoconstrictor otacoids like endothelin 1, angiotensin 2 released by the endothelial cells produces vasoconstriction and decreases coronary blood flow. Regulation of coronary blood flow by the neural control mechanism. Now the neural control mechanism, they can be direct neural control mechanism, indirect neural control mechanism as well as the neurohumoral factors. Now first of all let's understand about the direct neural control. So the direct neural control is by the autonomic nervous system. So sympathetic and parasympathetic nervous stimulation, it play a role in the control of the coronary blood flow. Sympathetic nerve fibers, they extensively innervate coronary vessels and sympathetic stimulation, it releases catecholamine. Now catecholamine acts on the alpha as well as the beta receptor, but mainly the alpha action predominate. So direct effect of the sympathetic stimulation is vasoconstriction. Parasympathetic stimulation has very little direct effect and it causes vasodilatation. Indirect neural control mechanism, it explains the indirect role of the autonomic nervous system in the control of the coronary blood flow. For example, sympathetic stimulation, it causes increase in the heart rate as well as the increase in the force of contraction of the heart. So because of the increased activity of the heart, it increases conversion of the ATP to ADP. Now, because of this conversion of the ATP to ADP, it increases formation of the adenosine also. And adenosine, it produces coronary vasodilatation, which increases the coronary blood flow. So, sympathetic stimulation, it indirectly increases the coronary blood flow by producing coronary vasodilatation. Now parasympathetic stimulation, it causes decrease in the heart rate as well as the decrease in the force of contraction of the heart. So the indirect effect is decrease in the coronary blood flow is produced by the parasympathetic stimulation. Neurohumoral factors also play a role in the nervous control mechanism that controls the coronary blood flow. Now these neurohumoral factors, they are neuropeptide Y, calcitonin gene related peptide and the substance P. Neuropeptide Y, it is released with norepinephrine during the sympathetic stimulation and it causes severe vasoconstriction and it decreases coronary blood flow. Calcitonin gene related peptide and the substance P, which are also found in the cardiac nerves, they causes increase in the release of the endothelium derived relaxation factor or the nitric oxide and it produces vasodilatation, and because of the vasodilatation it increases the coronary blood flow. Now let's understand factors affecting coronary blood flow. First is the mean aortic pressure. So mean aortic pressure is the pressure head that drives blood into the coronary arteries. So whenever mean aortic pressure increases, it increases the coronary blood flow, and when mean aortic pressure decreases, it decreases the coronary blood flow. Second is muscular exercise. So normal coronary blood flow at rest is about 70 ml per 100 gram of the tissue per minute or 250 ml per minute. During exercise, coronary blood flow increases because of the sympathetic stimulation. Sympathetic stimulation, it indirectly increases the coronary blood flow. Emotional excitement as well as the hypotension can also affect the coronary blood flow. During the emotional excitement such as fright, auditory and olfactory stimuli, the coronary blood flow it is increased because of the increase in the sympathetic discharge. During the hypotension, sympathetic output increases, and because of this increase in the noradrenergic discharge, it increases the coronary blood flow because of the coronary vasodilatation. Hyperthermia increases the body metabolism and the coronary blood flow increases whenever temperature of the body increases, and hypothermia decreases the body metabolism and it decreases the coronary blood flow. Anemia produces tissue hypoxia, and because of the tissue hypoxia, it increases release of the adenosine, which produces the vasodilatation and the coronary blood flow increases. So, in the anemia, coronary blood flow increases. Thyroid hormone increases the coronary blood flow because of the increase in the metabolism. Adrenaline and noradrenaline, they can also cause increase in the coronary blood flow through the beta adrenergic stimulation. Pitresin is known to decrease coronary blood flow by increase in the coronary resistance, and nicotine is reported to increase coronary blood flow through the liberation of the norepinephrine. Now let's solve some MCQs. First MCQ, blood flow through the left coronary artery, and available options they are regulated by sympathetic vasodilator nerve, increase when myocardial hypoxia is present, greater during early systole, and decreased in reflex response to fall in the blood pressure. And the answer is blood flow to the left coronary artery increases when myocardial hypoxia is present because hypoxia increases the production of the adenosine which produces coronary artery vasodilatation and the blood flow. Second MCQ, major portion of the coronary blood flow it occurs during. Now the available options they are systole, diastole, not related to phases and it is variable. So the major portion of the coronary blood flow it occurs during the diastole. So the answer is B. Third MCQ, arteriolar dilatation is caused by following except. So here question is about substance causes arteriolar constriction. Now the available options are histamine, reduced adrenergic discharge, EDRF or nitric oxide and endothelin 1. So from all available option, endothelin 1 is the only vasoconstrictor substance. So the answer is endothelin 1. Coronary blood flow stops during. Available options are protodiastole, end of the diastole, isovolumetric relaxation, and the isovolumetric contraction. So coronary blood flow stops during the isovolumetric contraction phase. So the answer is D. Coronary artery diseases. Coronary artery disease, also known as ischemic heart disease, the result due to insufficient coronary blood flow. Now, the most common cause of the coronary artery disease is the development of the atherosclerosis in the coronary vessels. In the atherosclerosis, arterial walls they become rigid with the narrow lumen and the deposition of the calcium and fatty acid inside it, which decreases the coronary blood flow, which result in the ischemic heart diseases. Risk factors for coronary artery diseases. Men over 60 years of age and female with more than 65 years of the age, they are more prone to develop coronary artery disease. Family history is also a predisposing factor in diseases like diabetes, hypertension, hypercholesterolemia. They are more prone to develop atherosclerosis and the coronary artery diseases. Habit like smoking is a predisposing factor. Obesity is also a predisposing factor for the coronary artery disease. Diet rich in the saturated fats and low in the antioxidants is also a proven factor for the coronary artery disease. Sedentary lifestyle and the lack of the exercise, they can be a risk factor for the coronary artery disease in the future. Occlusion of coronary artery, either by thrombus or embolism, it leads to development of the myocardial ischemia or the myocardial hypoxia. Now, myocardial ischemia, it leads to accumulation of factor P and lactic acid within the myocardial tissue, and it produces substernal pain radiating to the inner border of the left arm, which is known as angina pectoris. So the angina is the cry of the dying myocardial fibers. Anginal pain, it is increased by cold or after meals, and the pain is frequently described as hot, pressing, and the constricting, and usually lasts for only few minutes. If the myocardial ischemia is prolonged or severe enough, it can cause the death of the myocardial cell. It is known as myocardial infarction. That is the aseptic necrosis of myocardium. Angina pectoris is of two types, stable angina and the unstable angina. Stable angina, it is also known as effort angina. So it is precipitated by the physical activity. So whenever person performs the physical activity like walking, running, exercise, then it precipitates the anginal pain in the substernal region and it is relieved by the rest. Whenever angina occurs even at the rest and usually lasts for more than 10 minutes, then it is known as unstable angina. When myocardial hypoxia it is prolonged, then it produces irreversible changes inside the myocardium and produces aseptic necrosis of the myocardial cell, and it is known as myocardial infarction. Clinical feature of the patient with the acute attack of the myocardial infarction. So patient with the acute myocardial infarction, they have classical symptom of acute severe chest pain, usually described as pain pressure or the discomfort in the retrosternal area. The pain radiates to neck, shoulder as well as in the left arm. Patient present with the shortness of the breath or dyspnea along with the nausea, vomiting, palpitations, sweating and the anxiety, often described as sense of impending doom. Diagnosis of myocardial infarction. It can be made by typical signs and symptoms like chest pain along with the breathlessness. Then we have to observe for the ECG changes seen on the serial tracings and changes in the serum level of certain enzyme and the cardiac biomarker. They can confirm the diagnosis of acute attack of the myocardial infarction. ECG changes in the myocardial infarction, they are very important to diagnose as well as localize the area of the infarction and to know the duration of the infarction also. Now the typical ECG changes seen in the myocardial infarction, they include elevation of the ST segment in the leads overlying the infarcted area and the depression of the ST segments in the reciprocal leads. So the elevation in the ST segment in the leads overlying the infarct area, It is the hallmark for the diagnosis of the myocardial infarction. Measurement of serum enzyme and the protein related to the myocardial infarction. They are the cardiac biomarkers and they are helpful in the diagnosis of the acute attack of the myocardial infarction. Creatinine kinase level increase within 4 to 6 hours of the myocardial infarction and it lasts for 2 to 3 days. Creatinine kinase is a sensitive biomarker and it is particularly useful whenever skeletal muscle abnormality they are absent. Troponin T and troponin I, they are cardiac specific proteins and so most sensitive and specific for the myocardial infarction. Lactate dehydrogenase levels they peak within 72 hours and lactate dehydrogenase is not specific as the troponin. Homocysteine is the substance that damages the endothelial cell of the coronary vessels and there is a strong positive correlation is present between the circulating levels of the homocysteine and myocardial infarction. Homocysteine, it is usually converted into the non-toxic substance by the vitamin B12 and the folic acid. So whenever vitamin B12 and folic acid they are absent in our diet, it leads to increase in the homocysteine and chances of the myocardial infarction they are more. So supplements of the vitamin B12 and the folic acid that decreases the incidence of the myocardial infarction. Serum transaminase it is also elevated in the patient with the acute attack of the myocardial infarction. There is also positive correlation is found between the C-reactive protein and the acute attack of the myocardial infarction. So these are all the cardiac biomarkers helpful in the diagnosis of acute attack of the myocardial infarction. Other investigations that are useful for the localization of the infarct. Echocardiography it is useful for the assessment of the left ventricle and the regional functioning. It gives information about the movement of the ventricle as well as other cardiac chambers and their function. Doppler echocardiography, whenever it is performed along with the echocardiography, it gives information about the flow and the velocity of blood across the cardiac valves. Scintigraphic studies with the technetium as well as the thallium, they are useful to identify the regions of the ischemia. Radionuclide angiography, it gives information about the A kinases in the area of the infarction and also measures ejection fraction. After diagnosing the patient with the acute attack of the MI, having typical signs and symptoms like chest pain, breathlessness, ECG changes like ST segment elevation in the leads overlying the infarcted area, and the elevation of the cardiac biomarkers, we should start the treatment of the patient immediately to prevent mortality as well as the spread of the infarct area. Aim of the therapy is to restore blood flow to the affected area and to prevent the spread of the intravascular clot. Aspirin and clopidogrel, they slows clotting and decreases the size of the intravascular clot. Analgesics, they can be given to relieve pain. Thrombolytic therapy, they are useful to dissolve the intravascular clot and they restore perfusion to the affected area. Thrombolytic therapy, it reduces mortality and it limits the infarct size. Streptokinase, plasminogen streptokinase activator complex and tissue plasminogen activators, they are useful for the thrombolytic therapy. Post-thrombolytic heparin therapy, it is given to further prevent the intravascular clot formation. Beta blockers, they are given to decrease heart rate, force of contraction, decrease blood pressure and the cardiac work. ACE inhibitors, they are given to decrease the intravascular circulating fluid volume, decrease preload as well as the cardiac work. Calcium channel blockers, they are useful to prevent hypertension and the cardiac workload. Surgical treatment in the patient with the acute attack of the myocardial infarction, it is also useful. Surgical treatment, it includes coronary artery bypass surgery and the coronary angioplasty. First, understand about the coronary artery bypass surgery. So here we can see the area of the affected coronary vessel and beyond the point of blockage, it produces infarction of the myocardium. So in the aortic coronary bypass, the section of the subcutaneous vein from the arm it is removed and grafting is done from the root of the aorta to beyond the point of the blockage. So it restores the blood flow to the affected area by bypassing the coronary vessel, and it is known as aortic coronary bypass. Coronary angioplasty. In the coronary angioplasty balloon pointed catheter, it is passed under the radiographic guidance into the coronary system and it is passed up to the point of blockage. Then the balloon it is inflated, and this inflated balloon it removes the blockage in the coronary vessels and it restores the perfusion in the affected area. And this procedure it is known as coronary angioplasty. In the coronary angioplasty, stents they are commonly used. Stents they are small stainless steel mesh tubes which are placed inside the coronary artery. They keep the coronary artery open and prevent restenosis.